Okay, welcome to our virtual Iftar of 2021. Thank you for joining us today on Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, and YouTube. My name is Huda, and I'll be hosting you this evening. We have an exciting evening planned with the speaker, Ustadh Shabbir Hassan from Faith-Based UK. But before we start, first I'd like to thank our media partner of this year, Islam Channel, and give a special welcome to those who are joining us on Islam Channel's Facebook and YouTube channel. It's a pleasure to have you all. And also like to thank the Arts Council in UK, who's helped allow us continue our work on Ramadan, all of which is available on in our website. That includes the virtual open Iftar every night of Ramadan, our Ramadan Lates course that happens for the first 18 days of Ramadan, and our open Iftar pack on 2020. This year, our pack will not only help you bring the Ramadan experience and spirit to your home, but we work in collaboration with the Islamic Relief, our charity partner, and with each pack you buy, we feed a person over the whole month. You can check our incredible work with Islamic Relief in iruk.co/RTP. Our virtual open Iftar is interactive, so if you can hop onto the Zoom call, and for those who are comfortable with it, if you can turn on your camera so we can see your faces and interact better. So we'll begin with a quick run through on the tech. You'll find a button at the bottom of your screen or more on the section in your mobile where you have reaction options, so you can show us your reactions in real time and how you feel about things in real time. You can also raise your hands, so if you have any questions or you want to interact with us, you just raise it and one of our teams will unmute you. Also, if you want to talk to us, you can also use the chat option. But first of all, I'd like to kind of know a bit more about you and how your Ramadan's going. So if anybody can tell me, how is your Ramadan? Kalthum, do you mind telling me how your Ramadan's going? How is the month going? What do you have planned for Fadra?
It's going okay, alhamdulillah. For Iftar today, we're having leftovers because we had someone had brought us food yesterday, and there's a lot of stuff remaining, so we're just going to eat that.
What kind of leftovers are we talking about?
So someone made us massaman curry.
Nice.
I think it's Middle Asian, I'm not sure, but so we're eating that with, I think my mum will be making like rice, and then on like side dishes we're having some plantain.
Nice.
But yeah, should
That's
be good.
Amazing. Oh,
what are you having?
Kind of the same. Yesterday I made these like random vegetarian patties, so I'm just gonna heat them up. That's what I'm gonna have. So it's not very exciting. Amazing. So Sarah's saying that's delicious, and she loves masama curry. Sarah, what do you have planned for Ramadan? Like in terms of your iftar? I know you're in Turkey. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. I've already had my iftar. I also had leftovers, but we had it was loads of Egyptian food.
What kind of Egyptian food? I'm a big fan. I used to live in Egypt for 3 years, so I'm a big fan of Egyptian food.
I already like you, Huda, because most people they don't really like talking about Egyptian food. They just, I don't know why. Egyptian food's nice. We had everything that was Egyptian yesterday. We had molokhia, we had feta, we had this dish. It's one of my favorite dishes called macarona bil bechamel. It's like Egyptian lasagna. Yeah. So
are you Egyptian?
I am Egyptian. Yes.
I know, like yesterday, molokhia was like kind of the topic of discussion.
Yes, it was yesterday. Molokhia was, but I don't know. Do you like molokhia?
So that's probably where I like.
That's where you draw the line.
Yeah, I think the texture of it just isn't my favorite thing, but I do think Egyptian food has a lot. Falafel is A1, and there's kushari. Yes. It's amazing. Fool is amazing, kushari. But no, Egyptian food's amazing.
Oh, thank you. You're my favorite person. Officially.
Thank you.
I usually get this for my food. Ryla, your fajit. Tell us about your fajitas, Ryla.
Yeah.
Yes, fajitas tonight. So I've just popped them on, which I was doing multitasking in the kitchen, and now I'm fully ready to listen to Ustadh Shabbir about the virtues of patience.
What kind of fajitas are you having?
Chicken.
Amazing.
We're very much a meat eating family, so I can't imagine anybody would have been happy if I'd said, "Oh, we're just having vegetable fajitas today." They'd have been like, "What? Where's the meat?"
Yeah, that's fair. How's your Ramadan going?
Alhamdulillah, really good, really good. So yeah, it's been a bit hectic with work, but I've been trying to incorporate exercise into my Ramadan routine. So I went out for a run before, did not enjoy it. Wish I'd gone for the plan B, which was having a nap, but I did it. So here I am, ready for fast to open to definitely have some water, that's for sure.
Wow, I'm really impressed. I cannot exercise during Ramadan, but I'm impressed.
I'm trying. Is anybody else attempting to incorporate some exercise, some walks into their days? Or is it just me who's motivated? Or, well, I say motivated. Obviously, it's only been a week. I have only managed about 2 runs. So I think it's pretty good, alhamdulillah. But could be better.
So Hassan's saying that she'd like to run before Iftar, but she says that she hasn't tried that yet.
I would definitely recommend doing it before Iftar. The other day, I tried it at lunchtime because I had a few hours between meetings at work. That led for a very tired afternoon where I just wanted to have a nap. So definitely before Iftar is, I think, the right time.
That's amazing. Kudos to you, but I don't think I could do that quite yet. Hassan, how is your Iftar going? What do you have planned for Iftar? How's your Ramadan going in general?
Hi, assalamu alaikum everyone. So my fast for now is going okay, alhamdulillah. A lot of work as well. And so for tonight is Italian actually. I'm gonna eat pasta because I love it. Actually, in our food we have pasta and we have as well mloukhia. So guess what? I'm not a big fan as well. So it's Tunisian. So we have I didn't know that the Egyptian people have a version of the mloukhia that is a little bit different from us in Tunisia. Well, in Tunisia it's more dark and it's more heavy. And because actually mom didn't like it, so she didn't cook it at home and we didn't get used to. So when we go to visit the family in Tunisia, it's always oh, what is this? It's mloukhia. Okay, I'm not a big fan, sorry.
I think mloukhia is kind of the polarizing dish for a lot of Middle Eastern people. It's you either like it or you don't. It's kind of like the Marmite of the Middle East.
Alhamdulillah.
Amazing. That brings us into our speaker. So the theme today is the virtues of patience. Our speaker today is Ustadh Shabbir Hassan from Faith Space UK. So he's quite uniquely qualified to speak on this topic because he's written a book called A Beautiful Patient, the 40 Lessons from Surah Yusuf. Our guest is also an imam, a speaker, a poet, and the founder of Nikah Co, a podcast host of Ilm Feed podcast and the spiritual facilitator of Faith Space UK. So how's your Ramadan going? If you can tell us a little bit more about yourself and just talk on the theme of the virtue of patience, inshallah. I think you're muted.
Hey, assalamu alaikum everyone. Hope you're well, inshallah. Thank you so much for having me on. Alhamdulillah, Ramadan's going great. It was a really, really nice sunny day today over here in the UK. So we're kind of enjoying the rare spot of sun, which always, have you realized something? The sun always appears in Ramadan. When you're fasting and you can't have any water or anything like that, the sun decides to appear. Every Ramadan, there's always this nice weather. But you know what? Not complaining, alhamdulillah. Talking of walks, I did go for a quick walk. Nothing too intense, just a nice kind of stroll. But no, honestly, Ramadan's going really great. Alhamdulillah, compared to last year, I mean, obviously last year we were in a full kind of lockdown. So it was a bit, it was difficult. This year, alhamdulillah, at least some of the mosques have opened up. We've got some freedom in some capacity. So yeah, I'm not complaining. I think I'm really enjoying my Ramadan so far. Alhamdulillah.
That's amazing. I'm kind of jealous because in Sweden right now it's snowing earlier. So yeah, it must be
what,
really nice.
Really?
Yeah, it was snowing. It never really set, but it's like spring, and sometimes it gets really hot, sometimes it snows, so it's really unusual here. But yeah, it's really
Wow.
beautiful.
Okay, that's a complete contrast then to what we're experiencing here. That's quite cool. We've got like we a lot of us here in the UK, and we've got Sarah that was in Istanbul, and you're in Sweden. So that's pretty cool, mashallah, the way we're connecting here. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the open iftar. It brings, I think the first day they had an Australian person on, so I think it brings a lot of people from different backgrounds. So that's the beauty of it. But,
Nice.
yeah. I think it's kind of trying to recreate the experience where usually in real life we would be together.
Exactly. Yeah, alhamdulillah. That's one of the great blessings of being having these virtual iftars, and otherwise we wouldn't really have been able to see each other. But alhamdulillah, now Ramadan's going great, and I hope everyone is healthy and well, and inshallah enjoying and benefiting from their Ramadan experience so far this year. I mean, you mentioned patience. That's probably going to be one of the things that we're going to be speaking about today. And yeah, so the book that I actually wrote, it's called A Beautiful Patience, but basically it's named after an expression in the Quran from Surah Yusuf, to be particular. Surah Yusuf is the chapter about the great prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, Prophet Joseph, as he's known biblically. So basically, in that chapter twice there is an expression which a lot of us we know, which is sabrun jamil, which you very loosely translate it as a beautiful patience. So that's kind of where the title came from. And the book itself is, I mean, though it's not a whole book about patience, but it's more to do with 40, the way that I've written it is 40 life lessons from Surah Yusuf. And one of the key kind of themes of Surah Yusuf is patience, because this amazing kind of prophet that we learn about, if you read about his journey, if you kind of study his story, you find that from a very young age, he was put through so many trials, from that time that he was thrown into the bottom of the well to the time where he's like he ends up in a foreign land, and then he ends up in prison, and like he's gone through so many things, and he's been separated from his family for all these years. So like that's one of the key lessons that we learned. That's why I wrote the book itself. But on the topic of patience, I think that is very relevant to Ramadan, especially for a lot of us, because patience is probably what most of us Muslims have to exercise the most in the month of Ramadan compared to any other month, because we're talking literally just staying away from food and drink, abstaining from these things. That requires a lot of patience. Just sometimes, a lot of times in Ramadan, you have to control yourself in other ways, like just controlling your anger, as an example. That is a form of patience. Sometimes somebody annoys you, and outside of Ramadan, maybe you would have reacted one way, but then you realize that you're fasting, and then you're like, you know what, okay, I need to calm down, I need to maybe just control myself here. And that is a form of patience. And it's interesting because in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ista'inu bis-sabri was-salah, that, oh believers, seek help, seek assistance with God through patience and salah, and through prayer and through patience. That many of the commentators of the Quran of this verse, they say that prayer obviously is quite obvious what salah is, what prayer is, what dua is. But what does sabr here mean? A lot of the scholars, they interpret this to mean fasting in the month of fasting in general, but of course more so in the month of Ramadan, that seek help and come closer to God, to Allah, through these two things, through prayer and through fasting. Because and God actually refers to fasting as patience, because it literally requires you to exert all your patience. For like in the UK, as an example, it's what now, like 16 hours? Huda, sorry, how many hours is it in Sweden, just out of interest, like fasting?
I think it's around 18, roughly.
Oh, so you guys have longer.
Yeah.
So you need more patience than any of us here. MashaAllah, that's pretty intense. And by the way, anybody here, please feel free to, like, if you're outside of the UK, feel free to drop how many hours you're fasting, because I know in some parts it's a lot shorter. But yeah, I mean, look, so 16 to 18 hours, that's a long time. That's like barely 5-6 hours you get, you know, outside of the state of fasting. So that's why it's more relatable in Ramadan. As well as that, I mean, on top of all that, it's like we've had a lockdown. You know, Sarah was saying that, you know, they're still in a lockdown in Turkey. So like you can imagine, like with lockdown as well, with all these restrictions, imagine how much patience you have, like how much difficulty many people are going through, whether it's through illnesses, you know, COVID related, whether financially, a lot of people have lost their jobs and so on. You know, like people are going through a lot. And that's why, you know, Ramadan, lockdown, COVID, like everything put together, I think right now is, you know, we're just kind of proving to ourselves how strong we are, like, because patience is really, you know, a form of strength. It's more kind of like mental, spiritual strength than physical strength, but it is really a type of strength. And I think honestly, Ramadan, like I was delivering another workshop today, and in fact, most of the attendees of that workshop, they were non-Muslims. And, you know, I was just reflecting on actually how when you fast, and by the end of, like, after a few fasts, you kind of actually prove to yourself, like Ramadan proves to you how, you know, patient you actually are, or how strong you actually are, or how, you know, how big of an accomplishment it is. Like as Muslims, we kind of just get into the swing of it, and we just do it, and it's kind of done by the end of Ramadan every year. Alhamdulillah, we managed to do it. But actually what we're proving to ourselves is, wow, like I can control my food intake. I'm actually in control of my nafs. I'm actually in control of my inner desires, my thoughts. I'm in control of my tongue. Like that's a big thing, because outside of the year, we don't really think about it. We just go with the flow. We just, you know, we eat however much we want, and we're stuffed, and we waste food, and, you know, we never think about these things. But in Ramadan, all of a sudden we're conscious of these things. I think that is a huge win for us. Alhamdulillah, like if you manage to get through it, that is a huge win. That's a huge plus point. So I think we need to reflect on those points more. We need to give ourselves more credit. That's what I'm trying to say, than just, you know, okay, I got it done, great. No, there's a lot of reward in it. There's a lot of reward in it for a reason. That's why it's all about patience here. And just very quickly, I mean, on patience, I mean, to break this down, there's actually different types of patience, which a lot of people don't know. So a lot of like the Muslim scholars, they have written about what the different types of patience are. And there's actually 3 categories or 3 types of patience you can break it into. One is patience in, as they say, in ta'ah. Ta'ah means obedience. Fi ta'atillah, the obedience of God. This is a type of patience. So basically, what we're doing right now by fasting, by standing in prayer, you know, observing the prayer in the nighttime, Taraweeh as an example, by waking up for Fajr in the morning, whatever it may be, like all of these is considered to be part of the first category, which is patience in observing the obedience of God. That is a form of patience, because that requires what we call steadfastness. As Allah tells us in the Quran, I think it's in Surah Maryam actually, he says, فَاعْبُدْهُ وَاصْطَبِرْ لِعِبَادَتِهِ. He says, worship God and then be steadfast in worshipping him, right? Which means that, you know, it's not a one-off thing. To fast the whole month of Ramadan, that requires a lot of patience. To pray 5 times a day, every day, that requires a lot of steadfastness. Steadfastness meaning that you just keep going and you don't stop. Whereas many other people, they might falter, they might waver, they might do some here and then stop and then go again, which is also fine. Like, you know, you're trying, alhamdulillah, that's a great thing. But that steadfastness is a huge thing. So that's the first, basically, that's the first category, which is patience in observing or in obeying Allah, in the obedience of Allah. The second category is patience in refraining from or abstaining from sin, that also requires patience. So like the most common example of that, easiest example is with the tongue. So, you know, it's so easy to say a bad word to someone. It's so easy to mock someone. It's so easy to backbite someone. And if you control yourself and you stop yourself from doing that, then that also requires patience, because the easy option is to basically opt for the sin. The easy option is to do the bad, right? The difficult thing is to stop that. You know, when you get really angry, and before you lash out, you control yourself and you stop lashing out at someone, that requires patience. So all of these things are considered in Islam, they're considered to be blameworthy, or they're considered to be sinful. But by you stopping yourself from doing those things, that is a form of patience, which means that there is reward even in these things. Then you have the third category, which is now the one that most of us are familiar with, which is sabr, or patience, when there is a musibah. Musibah here meaning a calamity, when there's a difficulty. That's when we normally talk about patience, like, you know, something bad has happened in your life, something challenging, some difficulty that you're experiencing, and you are then patient, and you then, you know, you hold yourself back, you know. That's the third type of patience, which is the common one that every single one of us, in some way, shape, or form, we've all gone through, and we are still going through, we're still experiencing. And that's where our discussion leads into, which is the patience when you're going through difficulty. And that's the patience that we're talking about in Surah Yusuf, mainly Yusuf alayhi salam. This is what he went through. This is the one that most of us are going through till this day. Like, so what does it mean to even be patient? Or, you know, when we say beautiful patience, sabr jamil, what does it even mean to have a beautiful patience, to endure with a beautiful patience? Basically what it means, and I really feel like it's important to clarify this, what it means to be patient, because a lot of Muslims, unfortunately, we don't understand what it means to be patient. It's not as straightforward. So what it really well and truly means, as a lot of the scholars they say, is that beautiful patience is such patience where you don't complain about the situation, where you're not complaining. So complaining here meaning that, you know, like that you complain about Allah, you complain about you know, the situation that you're in. Like, we as Muslims were actually taught, like, to be at such a level that even when you're going through difficulty, you say Alhamdulillah, right? You say like, Alhamdulillah, you know, I'm going through difficulty, but all praise belongs to Allah, because I know He'll get me through it. I know there's a way out. So that's kind of like the higher level of patience, right? Where you're not complaining about the situation. So you're not going around saying to people, oh, you know, why is God picking on me for, you know, like, why am I going through it for? Why is it not the other person? Like, what did I do to deserve this? And we're almost like questioning the decree of God. We're almost like questioning Allah Azza wa Jal. So I think that is where it's considered to be not patient, when you've gone to that level. But to be patient basically means you're not complaining about the situation, but that also doesn't mean, by the way, and this is an important clarification here, patience doesn't mean that you are just silent. For example, in the extreme case where somebody is oppressing you, somebody has wronged you, and then you're like, you know what, I'm going to be patient now, I'm going to not speak out. That is not patience. That's an exception here. You know, if somebody is wronging you, it is actually a duty upon you to speak up and to stand your ground and to defend yourself, whatever it takes. You must do that. That does not negate your patience. Something else that does not negate your patience is getting emotional, feeling emotional, crying, for example. Again, some Muslims, they think that, oh, if I cry or if I get emotional, then this means that I am not patient, or I'm not being patient, I'm not observing patience. And again, complete wrong attitude to have, because Allah, right, we were created with these emotions, right? You cannot suppress that. You cannot stop those emotions. You cannot negate those emotions. It is natural for a human being to feel sadness, to feel happiness, to feel love, to feel joy, to express these emotions, right? And in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, one thing that is amazing is that his father, meaning prophet, he's another prophet, Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, Prophet Jacob, Allah tells us in that surah that he was so saddened by the loss of his son Yusuf. He hadn't seen his son for years upon years. Basically, he assumed that he was basically dead, right? He's gone, right? Because it's been that long, and he just, it's easy to lose hope at that point. So we learned about Yusuf, Yaqub alayhi salam, is that he cried so much. He cried so much that he lost his eyesight due to crying and weeping excessively, right? That's how much he cried out of sadness, Allah tells us, yeah? So what do we learn here? We learn that a prophet of God cried so much that he lost his eyesight. Yet, does that mean that he wasn't being patient? Prophet Muhammad ﷺ himself, he cried when his son, his baby son, his infant child passed away. And the companions, they asked him, oh, even you, O Messenger, even they were surprised. They were like, even you, O Messenger of Allah, like you're crying? And he said, yes, why not? He says, this is a mercy. He referred to his tears as a mercy from Allah, because actually it is a mercy. If you think about it, crying really helps you processing the difficulty that you're going through. So the main point here being remaining silent during a difficult, during times when you're oppressed or being wronged, or crying and expressing your emotion, it does not mean that you're not being patient. Patience means to cry, that's fine. To even if you need to speak to someone about it, that's fine. It just means not to complain about the situation, to deep down know and acknowledge that Allah can get me through this. Allah will get me through this. He will help me through this. And you just keep doing what you are normally doing. You keep praying, you keep making dua, and you do whatever is in your ability to better the situation, to come out of the situation. That's really all it is. So that's what it means to be patient, to the extent that we are content with what Allah has preordained or destined for us. I think that's the important clarifications that need to be made here. And that's why I think, all of us, we at some point in our lives, or very frequently in our lives, we need to be patient, we need to exercise it. I think that's why, the book was so important for me, writing these lessons and, reflecting on them, that inshallah, like that will help us get through, the more difficult times in life. So these are really important things to understand. So I think coming back to Ramadan, and linking it back to Ramadan, I think patience is what we are building throughout Ramadan. As many like psychologists, they say it takes 30 days, maximum 40 days to like build a new habit, or some say it takes the same amount of time to break a habit. And it just so happens that Ramadan is about 30 days in length. So you keep doing something for 30 days. For example, if you're able to wake up for tahajjud, before Fajr, if you're able to wake up every night throughout Ramadan, because you're going to do it anyway. I mean, you want to get up and grab a bite to eat for suhoor. You want to do that anyway. You're going to do it, right? And if you manage to do that for 29, 30 days straight, then you've just proven to yourself that beyond Ramadan, you can do the same. You can do exactly the same. If you've managed to cut down your food this month, you've just proven to yourself that I've just built a habit where outside of Ramadan, I can do the same. There's so many things that you're going to learn about yourself in Ramadan. And I think that's why Ramadan is such an amazing experience for us all, that we learn so much by the end of it. And then we have, afterwards Allah is so merciful that He even gives us a whole festival to celebrate with after Ramadan. It's interesting, by the way, because one of my friends was asking me recently, why do we have Eid after Ramadan, when surely we should be sad that Ramadan has come to an end? So why are we being happy for? Why are we celebrating the day after Ramadan comes to an end? Shouldn't we be sad, like shaitan's back again, and like we're back to normal again, and fasting days are over? Like, what's the deal with that? I said, it's a very good question, but it's actually the complete opposite. Like, you're saying we should be sad that Ramadan is over, and yeah, of course, deep down we will be, but it's actually the opposite. Allah tells us that you're supposed to celebrate that you managed to get through Ramadan. Like Allah blessed you with 30 days of fasting, of worship, Laylatul Qadr, if you managed to catch it, you had the best night of the year, you had the best days of the year, and you've gone through all that. Allah blessed you with all that. So that's a means of celebration. That's a reason to celebrate, and you thank Allah and you're grateful for what you've been given. That's why we have Eid at the end. So a lot of people don't know that. They just think Eid is just this random celebration, God-given celebration. No, it's actually there. Allah says, لِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that you can actually praise Allah for guiding you through Ramadan, and to be thankful to Him as well for everything that He's given you and for these opportunities in Ramadan. So I think it's just this perfect timing. So you know, the whole month of doing good, and then you have you have this celebration at the end. So yeah, these are just some thoughts of mine really on patience, and the link to and the correlation to Ramadan, and how we've developed ourselves and our character and so forth. And that's really what it should be about. So I think the last thing that I'll mention is going back to what I mentioned at the beginning, is just give yourself more credit. I've seen a lot, like if you go on social media, there's a lot of Muslims that are like, this Ramadan's such a waste, I'm not really getting anything out of it, which, okay, that's your personal reflection, fine. I mean, there's always room for improvement, but I think give yourself more credit. If you're fasting, if you're praying, if you're reciting more Quran than you normally would, I think that is you're already winning. That's already a plus point. If you're going to the masjid and you don't normally go to the masjid, that is a plus point. If you're giving more charity this month and you don't normally give that much charity, then that's already a plus point. You know what I mean? So there's a lot that we're doing, that there's a lot more reward for in this month anyway, that we should understand that, this is all about patience. It's all to do with patience. So yeah, these are just a few of my thoughts that I thought I would share with you all. Yeah, inshallah, of course, I know anyway there's going to be a time for questions, so I welcome questions as well, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. I think you've given us a lot to think about, definitely. I think Ramadan is actually a really good time for you to reflect on your behavior and just to improve yourself. And it's also, like you've mentioned, a really good time for you to exercise more patience. So one question I had is that you've got this Ramadan, you've got time in Ramadan where you get to reflect on your behavior, be better, build patience. How should you carry that spirit after Ramadan? How should you continue to be patient?
Yeah, really good question. I think that's the difficulty for a lot of us, which is carrying it through. It's very easy to keep the momentum going in Ramadan because everybody's doing it. And naturally, when that environment is created, when everyone's doing something, it's easier to do it. If everyone's going to the mosque, I think it's easier to go to the mosque because you just feel like, oh yeah, everyone's here. It feels nice to be here. Everybody's breaking fast at the same time. It feels nice. You know what I mean? So it's a lot easier. Naturally, yes, of course. If the community do things together, it's always easier to fit in and do things as well. But after Ramadan, when that kind of fades away, how do you keep that going? I think, yeah, that's a very good question. So one thing I would say is, look, and here's something amazing. After Ramadan, we enter basically the 10th month, which is known as Shawwal. And something quite amazing is that our Prophet actually, he told us that there's great virtue in fasting six days of Shawwal, which I find that quite amazing because when you think about it, it's like, okay, so I've just finished Ramadan and I've just been fasting a lot in that month. And now there's another potential 6 days that will just complete it, like in Shawwal in the following month. But not everybody's going to do those 6 fasts. But the point is that, when you let the momentum go and then you try to do something later, it's very difficult to do that. So the example, we were talking about exercise earlier. So if you've been exercising for a long time, or if you've been regularly going to the gym and you stop for 5 months, right? And then you try and get back into it, it's very difficult. So similarly with Ramadan, this is what I feel like a lot of us do. We let Ramadan finish. We did great in Ramadan. Eid day comes, and then the foot comes off the gas. Weeks go by, months go by, and we're like, yeah, Ramadan was good, Ramadan was good, Ramadan was good. Okay, and then it fades away. And a few months later, we're like, oh, I really miss Ramadan. I wish Ramadan can come back again. I want to get back into that same routine, right? So we miss Ramadan because Ramadan, okay, fine, it's going to come back, inshallah, the following year. But we could have done something. So my personal advice is, after Ramadan comes to an end, Eid day is not a day off. Like, it's not a day off. That's it. Celebrate, have fun, but still, it's a virtuous day as well. So like, still continue your acts of worship. Do what you can after Eid. Keep the momentum going. Keep fasting as much as you can. Weekly, if you want, fast. Keep praying. You had a really good role in Ramadan, waking up for tahajjud and fajr. Keep doing that. What I feel like we a lot of times we bring it on ourselves, where we let the gap go for a long time, and then we're like, now I've lost it. Keep it going. So I think it's just really all about that consistency. We were doing it anyway. Just keep that flow going, even though it's going to be more difficult because the people around you aren't doing it. But sometimes you just have to motivate yourself, thinking that, you know what, this is a year-round thing. This is a year-round thing, and Ramadan came at the right time. I just need to keep that going. So yeah, it's definitely more difficult in practice, but I think capitalizing on doing it immediately after Ramadan comes in, I think that would definitely help.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Anissa in the group in the chats also said that continuing fasting Monday to Thursday helps too, which brings us on to the next question by one of our participants, Ryla. I'm gonna mute her. She had a really good question.
Thanks, Huda. Assalamu alaikum, Ustadh. Thank you for the great talk on the virtues of patience. My question is there any particular du'as we can recite to help us when we're trying to be patient, or in situations where we need to kind of go to our reserves of patience because we're in a particularly hard situation? Is there anything that we can memorize that can help us?
Yeah, excellent question. Thank you, Ryla, for that. So let me mention something first, actually, before I answer that. So we're actually taught, this is again something that some people might not know. So we're actually taught, outside of going through difficulty, like just generally in life, we're taught not to make dua for patience specifically. And I know that sounds odd, but it actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. So just generally speaking, right, you're not supposed to ask Allah, oh Allah, give me patience. And the reason why, my teachers used to explain that when you're asking for patience, then what you're really asking for is, oh Allah, put me through something difficult so that I can build my patience further. So what you're really asking for is trouble, right? To put things in simple terms, you're asking to be put into a difficult situation. And we as Muslims, we're always told, don't ask for difficulty. Allah tells us in the Quran, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Right? Allah intends ease for you, not difficulty. So don't put yourself that's why, when you're traveling, right? When you travel, you actually have this dispensation that you can actually shorten your prayers when you're traveling. That's an amazing thing. Do you know why? Because Allah doesn't want to make it difficult for you, right? You don't even need to fast if you're traveling a long distance, because Allah doesn't want to make it difficult for you. But sometimes what we do, sometimes you're not feeling well. Allah says you don't even need to fast, actually, if you're not feeling well. You can make up for it later. But sometimes what do? We know it's going to affect our health. We know it's going to make things worse. But we're like, no, I'm going to fast. Because we think we know better now. Allah knows us better than we know ourselves. We think we know better now. And we're like, no, I'm going to fast. And then what happens halfway through the day, we're like almost collapsing because we're like, oh, I can't take it, right? So what do we learn? What do we learn from this? We learn that don't put yourself in a difficulty, because Allah doesn't want you to go through difficulty. So coming back to what I was saying, right? Don't ask for patience generally. But of course, look, when you're put into the trial, right? When you're now going through something really difficult and now you feel like you need a way out, of course, you can ask, oh Allah, grant me patience here. There are numerous du'as in the Quran. I can't give you the references off the top of my head. Inshallah, I'll try and send it later. There's one du'a which actually specifically asks for patience, where the du'a is in the Quran, رَبَّنَا أَفْرِغْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا. رَبَّنَا أَفْرِغْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا. The beautiful meaning, it means, oh Allah, pour patience over us. Like you pour water over something, pour patience over us right now. Like we need that patience, literally like coming down from the heavens. I need something right now. And this dua was actually made by, there's a whole story behind it in the Quran, you know, the magicians of Pharaoh. So Pharaoh, he gathered these magicians to basically have a duel with Musa, Prophet Musa alayhi salam. And you know, long story short, the magicians ended up accepting Islam. They all ended up prostrating and saying, we believe in the Lord of Musa and Harun. And Pharaoh got so angry. We know Pharaoh was one of the worst of tyrants, that he actually decided to slaughter these magicians. And as they were going through this, now they're put into the situation. Now they're making this dua. رَبَّنَا أَفْرِغْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا. Oh Allah, oh our Lord, our Master, pour patience over us. So yes, absolutely, there are du'as you can make in the difficulty. And you know, there's some du'as that you can memorize like this. And otherwise, outside of that, just literally make dua in your own language and ask Allah, you know, that specific situation that you're going through. Basically tailor your dua in your own language, English, whatever the language you want to speak, tailor it and make dua, inshallah. So I think, yeah, these are some things to keep in mind. But yeah, main point being, don't make dua for patience generally. Make dua for patience when you're put into a situation, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I've never heard of that. Thank you for that. You said that you should make dua in your own language. What's the importance of that? Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah. So dua in your own language. So basically, a lot of people they think that, of course, you know, Arabic. Stick to Arabic. That's it. You know, memorize some duas, which definitely you know, is great to do. So I'd still encourage, if you can, memorize some duas in Arabic. You know, from Quran. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً. You know, these types of duas. From the Sunnah, you can memorize duas as well. But what a lot of people fail to do is they fail to make their dua a bit more like a conversation. So again, in the book from Surah Yusuf, actually one of the chapters is about dua, because you'd realize that this is something that they were doing a lot. So Yusuf alayhi salam was doing, Yaqub alayhi salam was doing. They were making a lot of dua, but they were doing it in their own way. Like they were making it into more of a conversation. And I think this is where a lot of us what we don't do. So I actually posted stuff. It's very like, I didn't even think much of the tweet. I'll share what the tweet was. I tweeted it, and I realized now, I mean, I just randomly logged in earlier on, and that tweet has literally got like, I think like 12,000 shares or something like that. Like, it's unheard of. Like, I never get, you know, I'm not famous, so I don't get people you know, that much traction on a tweet. But it's like 12,000 people are like sharing it and liking it. And I'll tell you why. Is because I realized why. It's not because of me, of course. It's because of the tweet itself was talking about dua, and I think the way it was written, it's just so many people are relating to it, because dua is something that we all need, and dua gets us through. And basically, what I wrote was that when you make dua, one way of improving your dua is break it down into 3 areas. It's very simple. You know, 3 areas. What are the 3 areas? Past, present, and future. So I said, when you're making dua, keep the past, present, and future in mind. Past meaning that you ask Allah, like the focus is on your past. So you ask Allah to basically pardon and forgive, right? All your past sins, all the mistakes you made, all your shortcomings, all the previous things that you've done. That's number 1. Your present means to ask Allah for guidance, for clarity, for goodness in everything that you're doing right now. And your future is the important one. It basically means that you're making dua for Allah to, you know, give you the best in the next life, in the life to come, and to make everything easy for you, right? And to grant you paradise and so on, right? So I just literally, that was it. It was literally less than 140 characters. I just quickly summarized that point. And a lot of people are related to it, because I think what that's doing is it's making people think that I can make my dua in this way, where I can actually make dua in my own language, because the duas that you're reciting from the Quran and Sunnah, they are amazing. They are amazing. But the restriction is that you're not being able to have a conversation with Allah where you can actually pour your heart out. It's actually one of the most therapeutic things I would advise, you know, I would say that I've ever experienced. When you make dua and you have a conversation with Allah, Ramadan is the best time to make dua, literally, because the fasting person's dua is one of the best types of dua. The dua at the time of iftar, which is fast approaching, is one time that is blessed. The dua on Friday, right? We've got Friday, right? We're entering into Friday night now, right? Fridays in Ramadan, like you can't get better than that, to make dua on a Friday in Ramadan. You know, the time of suhoor, of tahajjud, before fajr, that is one of the best times, the last portion of the night. Ramadan is just giving us opportunity after opportunity to make dua. Now, it's up to you now to raise your hands in the middle of the night or whenever, by yourself, literally go by yourself, make dua, go to a quiet part of the house, wherever you're making dua, and literally just pour your heart out, and literally just one by one break it down. Oh Allah, I'm going through this, or oh Allah, I need this, or Allah, grant me this, and in your own language. So I think that's really it. In your own language, converse with Allah, make your, transform your dua from just a standard, template dua to more of a tailored conversational dua. That's one thing I've actually been speaking about this for such a long time, and I promise, like, this is something that helped me so much in my own life, and inshallah I hope that it helps others too.
Jazakallah khair. I definitely think that's an amazing way of thinking about how to make dua, like the future, the past, and the present. I definitely also think that in my personal life, I found that when I stopped, so I speak Arabic, but badly. So I found that whenever I use my own language and kind of just thought about dua in my own words, I felt like I built a better connection with Allah. That being said, back to the topic of emotions, emotional control, and emotional intelligence. Hawazin had a question, if she wants to unmute herself.
Yes. Hi, assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you, Ustadh Shabbir. The theme, Sabr, is such a beautiful theme, in particular during Ramadan, subhanAllah. So, barakallah fik for this, for the dhikr, for the thing that you said about du'as. It's really important. And about the emotions. So I was wondering, during Ramadan, we need to be in control of ourselves, right? So there's people who we can see sometimes like they're getting angry, or it's hard for them to kind of managing the emotions. So what could you advise them to do in order to improve on this? And as well, for us, what's the best way to react to someone who get angry, for example?
Excellent question. Yeah, thank you for that. So I think, with anger management or anger control, so I think you've touched on two areas here. One is you yourself, how you can control your anger. I think that's one. And the other also is when you come across someone who is always getting angry, how do you deal with that? Because I think that in and of itself is another form of patience, which is, this person's always getting angry. This person's got a very short fuse. How do you deal with that? So on the first point about controlling anger, generally speaking, I think that is very important for all of us to reflect on. And in fact, it's quite, the sunnah is so comprehensive. Our Prophet, he gives us many tips how to control your anger. So for example, he tells us, number one, he says, this is the most important one, if any of you are angry, stay silent. That's number one top tip, because anything that you're going to say during that moment of anger is not going to be a good thing. Most of the time, you're going to regret it, right? And once the words have left from your mouth, it's very difficult to take it back again, right? It's very difficult to take it back. You said something nasty to someone at that time when you were angry. You've probably broken their heart now, and it's going to take months to get the situation back to normal again. So number one, if you are angry, stay silent. Again, there are exceptions to this. Like I said about sabr, unless somebody is wronging, oppressing you, they're taking your possessions, they're doing something bad, they're harming you physically, verbally, that's different. You can't stay silent then. You have to, but I'm talking about, generally, like, small things, what I mean? Like you're driving and then something happens and you get angry, you want to swear at this person, you want to say something to this person. That's not life or death now. That's not emergency situation. That's just, come on, you got to do better. Or you're in the restaurant you're waiting for the food and the order's been delayed. And you start shouting at the waiter, the waitress, oh, what's this? Like, come on, it's not the end of the world. Just wait a bit longer. Your food will come. You don't have to be nasty to someone. They're doing their job. So these things I'm talking about, small day-to-day issues. Stay silent, number one. If it's getting to you, right? The Prophet, he says, if you're standing, then sit down. If you're sitting, then lie down. Why? What's the wisdom behind that? Is because, when you're standing, you have more control over your body. You might do something. When you're sitting, you're lowering yourself. If you're sitting and you lie down, what can you do when you're lying down? You can't do anything. So the Prophet is teaching you to basically humble yourself, lower yourself to the ground. He also says, like, even if you need some space, it's okay. So like, leave the room, for example, go get some fresh air. The best one, personally, that helps a lot is make wudu. Make wudu. Go, because there's two benefits to this. One is just the general water refreshing yourself. It feels nice, you go wash your face, for example. Wudu, you're washing your face anyway. And spiritually, it helps because when you're in a state of wudu, you're a bit more conscious. Like, oh, normally when you make wudu, you're supposed to pray, you're supposed to do something, right? So when you're in wudu, you're like, you feel bad doing something bad, basically, right? In wudu, you're like, okay, maybe I should just pray instead. Maybe I should just pick up the Quran and recite instead. So I think wudu helps a lot because it refreshes you. So these things, honestly, personally for me, this is all from the Sunnah. It's not my own tips. This helps you control your anger a lot. That's one area. And then the second, very quickly, is how do you respond to someone that keeps getting angry over and over again? I think number one is, there's a few practical tips. Number one is, don't try and fix the situation at that time when they are angry, because they're not going to listen to you. When they're angry, who listens? You try and sit them down and explain to them. Some people, they try and quote hadith. Oh, the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, don't get angry. It's like, oh, that's the worst time. They're angry right now. They're not thinking. So don't try and quote Quran, hadith, and preach to them at that time. That is very important. Also, don't tell them to calm down at that time. Don't say, brother, sister, calm down. Nobody wants to hear that when they're angry. You tell them to calm down. They're like, but I am calm though. And you trigger them more, and then they get even more angry. And so what I'm saying is, okay, it's, wait for the situation to just calm, itself naturally. Wait for it to subside. And when you get a moment, when you get a chance, that's when you need to speak to them. And that's when you just need to be upfront with them. You just should say, look, I think we should speak about X, Y, Z, the issue, and have an upfront conversation, depending on how close you are with them. And a lot of times they will listen at that point. And you can tell them, I didn't say anything at that time. I wanted to give you some time and space. I respect your time and space. And I think now we should discuss this. I think when you discuss a lot of times, it helps because, they now are aware of how you're feeling. But a lot of times we don't speak because we're too scared, or we don't want to make the situation worse. But I think, 8 times out of 10, it will help the situation, unless that person is, not going to cooperate. That's different. But I think, these are just some things, inshallah, that might help with the anger issues, inshallah. Allahu alam.
Barakallah feek.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that also teaches us a lot of mindfulness, to be mindful of yourself and others, and how to communicate your emotions to other people in an intelligent way. So that brings us on to the next question. Somebody asks, if you fast to make up and also want to fast the 6 Shawwal days, can you do a niyyah for both?
Good question. Yeah. So this is an area, because this is like a fiqh question. It's it's to do with Islamic law. There's naturally going to be a difference in opinion here. So it really depends on the school that you're following. So because the Shawwal fast is a nafil fast, nafil meaning it's an optional. It's not like Ramadan where you must do it. But then the Ramadan fast is is an obligation that you must make up for those fasts. So when you kind of combine the two, there's a lot of scholars who allow this. They say, the fact that you're making up your Ramadan fast in Shawwal, inshallah, you're going to get the virtue of it regardless. But just be aware, there is some difference in this area. Some don't allow it. But generally speaking, because what we do a lot of times anyway is when we need to make up fast for Ramadan, we delay it as much as we can, and then another Ramadan comes and we're like, oh no, I've got 10 fasts to make up, and now at this Ramadan I'm going to miss more fasts, and it just accumulates after a period of time. So I think best thing to do is, like we were talking about momentum, is literally when it's Shawwal, make up your fast, just get it done, because you're already in the zone, you're already in the mode of fasting, so get it done. So yeah, inshallah, you can get the reward for both with that combined intention.
Thank you. I think you spoke about momentum, so this actually brings us perfectly to the next question, where Farzine asks, what's your advice to motivate somebody who's not for somebody who's spiritually drained? Like, what's your advice to build that momentum in that case?
Yeah, so this is what I call spiritual burnout, which is what happens to a lot of us in Ramadan. So for example, we've done 10 days of Ramadan now, and what we might do in Ramadan is we might go all out in the first 10 days. We're doing everything. We're staying up all night. We're fasting, we're staying up all night. We're doing so much. And then what happens is by mid-Ramadan, there's this huge dip, because what happens is, I can't stay up in the night anymore. And you're just sleeping all the time now because you cut your sleep so much that you didn't balance things out. So sometimes it actually comes down to us, like, is it better to drain yourself in 10 days and then miss out on the next 10 days? Or is it better to do it consistently throughout? It's better to be consistent, right? Even if you think you're doing less, but actually long-term, it helps you do more. So when it gets to a stage when we experience spiritual burnout or we're spiritually drained, basically what you need, what we call a reset, just like with anything in life. When you're tired of work, you're drained, you need a reset. So sometimes that means you need a holiday, basically. You need a few days off. And now with spirituality, there's no such thing as a day off, right? Because you can't just stop everything. The spiritual journey continues, but you need somewhat of a reset. So sometimes that reset can come in different ways or forms. One way could be that you decide to do something different. So, like a lot of times we get stuck in a routine. We're doing the same thing. We're going to the same place. So, do something different. So, what? I should sign up for a class. I've never signed up for a class before, like a regular class. That might motivate me because I'm now, I've committed to something. Or, what? I'm going to reach out to a friend or someone that I know, and I'm going to be like, I'm going to make them my Quran buddy. Like, I'm going to revise Quran with them. So what you're doing is you're looking at interesting ways to enhance your spiritual life, where you're not just stuck in the same routine. I've lost complete focus in my prayers. I don't feel motivated to pray. So what I'll do is I'll memorize a new surah in the Quran, because that will naturally help my prayer. Because when it comes to prayer, if I've memorized a new surah, it feels good. When you accomplish something in life, you feel like, I've memorized a new surah. That's amazing. Let me recite that surah in prayer instead of reciting the same surahs again and again. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, qul huwa Allahu ahad, wal asr. The same surahs, like the short ones, quickly. Now when you say wattini was zaytun, or now when you say, al-qari'atu mal-qari'ah, like you're like, oh, that feels good, because my prayer doesn't feel like the same prayer I've been praying for the last 5 years. Now there's something different about it. So honestly, that is a huge one. Resetting yourself. It could even mean taking a break, not fully spiritually, but like sometimes even a holiday can help spiritually as well, because mentally what you're experiencing naturally is going to seep into your spiritual life. Naturally, if you feel exhausted in life in general, then of course that's going to impact your spiritual health as well. So sometimes, even just taking a holiday and a break and just relaxing for a bit, it does help your spiritual life, because you come back and you feel refreshed. So there's so many things, but I think hopefully these points inshallah will help.
Definitely. I think it is definitely quite helpful to think about spirituality as like a marathon rather than a sprint. But it's also definitely quite good to change your scenery and just kind of change your routine. So that brings me to one of my last questions. In your personal life as an imam and as an author, how's that tested your patience, and kind of how have you dealt with that?
That's a really good question, actually. Wow. Yeah, I think, patience is so many different ways, to be honest with you. So like, for example, as an imam, I'll give you some examples, right? We could do a whole show on like the life of an imam and the funny stories that we come across, right? So patience in so many ways, like some in like very small ways. So like, for example, every year, most years anyway, I'm not doing it this year, but every year normally for the last, like, I think 10 years, I've been leading the Taraweeh prayers. And that requires, like, the amount of prep you need to do. And then you're leading the prayers and it's so much pressure, and like you make mistakes and people are taking mistakes. Like, I think that requires a lot of patience, because it's something that it's just pressure that you're dealing with. Or sometimes when you're in the mosque, you get people commenting, or they are quite rude and upfront, and they're saying things to you, and face to face, that requires patience, because now you have a responsibility. You can't just say whatever. You're an imam, right? I think that requires, in and of itself, that requires a lot of patience, or so many areas. So I think, author, for example, the book, I think that process of publishing a book, it requires a lot of patience, because you're relying on so many people to meet deadlines, like the designer for the book and the editor for the book. There's so many things, and I think it's just a lot of pressure. So no doubt every single one of us, regardless of your job, the field that you're in, regardless of what you do, we all have to face our own difficulties in life, and we all got to be patient in some way, shape, or form. And I think, like I said, it's when you're able to do that, inshallah, when you're able to be patient, when you're able to get through that, you see the results of it, and it really is something special. So yeah, patience is something that we're all dealing with, that I have to deal with. And I think the more you do it, it's like a training. Like, the more you train yourself to be patient, the easier it gets. But patience in and of itself is not easy. But the more you train yourself to do it, steadfastness is a key word that we spoke about. The more you're able to do it, I think it just becomes easy. It's like Ramadan. The first few days, you're like starving by midday. You're just like, I need to drink something. But then, like 10 days in now, you're like, you know what, it's fine. I can keep doing it. I don't see it as a problem, because you just built something there. So I think, I think the key themes today that we've been mentioning a lot is like steadfastness, patience, routine, building a habit, maintenance. I think a lot of these are the key words that we've been using. So in summary, all of these things are important, inshallah.
Amazing. Do you have any final words or final thoughts you can leave us with? You've left us with a lot to think about.
No, I think really, I think, I think one of the questions here as well was about memorization, and like Ramadan is the best time for any of these things. You want to memorize something new, you want to learn something new, you want to do something new. I think Ramadan is the best time for these things. So like, don't miss that opportunity. I think dua was one thing that we touched on today, which again, I would just really advise everyone to take some time out to make dua. And like I said, make it into a conversation more than anything else. I think that is so important for dua to be a huge and integral part of your life. I think definitely tap into dua. And the final thing that I would say is, when it comes to your acts of worship, prayer, fasting, whatever it may be, try and think about the different elements that you don't normally think about. So prayer, for example, a lot of us, like I said, like I gave the new surah example. Instead of reciting the same surahs again and again in every unit of prayer, do something new. And like that, there's so many like hacks, if you want to call it hacks, right, that will help you transform your prayer. So one example would be to help focus in prayer. One thing that you should do is, before you start praying, a lot of us, what we do before we start praying is, just before we start praying, we like swiping on our phone, and then we put our phone away, and then we say Allahu Akbar when we start praying. And then basically what's happening is that when you start your prayer, now everything your messaging, your emails, your TikTok, Instagram that you've just been scrolling is now playing in your mind during your prayer, because that's the last thing you did before you prayed. So instead of that, before you start praying, put everything aside for like 2 minutes and just get into the zone of prayer. And, you know, then you say Allahu Akbar, then you start your prayer. You'll see the huge difference. Like that 1 minute would make a huge difference. So I think this Ramadan should be about how we can transform our day-to-day things that have become routine into something which becomes a lot more meaningful. I think that's what spirituality is all about. Spirituality is something which is supposed to be relevant in our lives. It's not supposed to be something that's just hidden away and that we bring out in Ramadan. You know, we wear the spirituality hat in Ramadan, and that's it. It's supposed to be part of our day-to-day, but we're supposed to make it meaningful as well. And I think, inshallah, if we can make our du'as more meaningful, our prayers more meaningful, our fasting more meaningful, even our patience more meaningful, I think you will see a spiritual growth like nothing before, inshallah. So I pray that you know, Allah blesses you, blesses us all in this month, and allows us to have a strong finish. We, you know, all's not lost. It's 10 days gone, but we've still got majority of it still left. You know, 20 days, inshallah. So I pray that, inshallah, it's a blessed one. And yeah, once again, a huge thank you to the RTP family for having me on again. It's always a pleasure to join you all for these events. And I'm praying, by the way, I'm going to make a special prayer that this time next year we're back together in the physical space. And like I'm praying that this time next year I can be with you guys at one of the open iftars in person, so I can meet you all, because I think we're missing that. I think 2 years in, we're hugely missing that. We need that. We need that community vibe again. So inshallah, let's pray that can happen, inshallah.
Inshallah, we really look forward to having you in real life. And I'd like to, it's coming to Azan, so I'd like to thank the speaker, Imam Shabbir Hassan, for your engaging speech. You've given us a lot to reflect on and a lot to think about our practices in Ramadan. So in the last few minutes before the before the Adhan, I want to say thank you again to our media partner, Islam Channel, and the Art Council UK for making this event possible. So don't forget to get your own exciting open iftar pack and check out all our work at the RamadanTentProject.com and read more about how we're fighting world hunger in Islamic relief at our iruk.co/RTP. You can also support and maintain our activities such as virtual iftar by donating. Your donations at virtual to keep in the Ramadan Tent Project going and are hugely appreciated. You can donate at www.launchgood.com/RTP2021. We now have a couple minutes before Adhan. We have exactly 1 minute, so we could just reflect on it before the Azan comes. And I'll now hand you over to Azan.
اللهم إني لك صمت وبك آمنت وعلى رزقك أفطرت. ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
So that's it for us today. Thank you for everybody for contributing to this conversation, and a special thanks to Ustadh Shabbir Hassan. For those who don't know, he's just put the name of his book there if you want to buy it. But thank you for everybody. I hope you have a good day, a good Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum.